All right, now is that time we go over to our great friend Mo Egger, ESPN 1530. How we doing, Mo?
I'm doing great. I feel like I haven't seen or talked to you in a while, so it's nice to be in your company.
You miss a week, you miss a lot, right? Around here these days, a lot changes. I'm still kind of making fun of the percentages, but it's a little more real now. It's a little bit more real now, and we're not laughing quite as much.
Right.
It's not. Are you latched on to finding whatever model has the highest percentage number right now and using that as your source?
No, I've thrown away all the models because the only model now is a 3-team parlay. Is a 3-team
Yes.
money line parlay. That's the model.
Yeah.
At which, depending on which book you use, is anywhere from like plus 1,400 to plus 1,600, at least as of this morning. So, whether it's 21%, I look at it, Vegas odds. What are the odds of this 3-way money line parlay hitting, Cincinnati winning as road favorites, Kansas City winning as road dogs, significant road dogs, and the Jets winning as home dogs? The odds are not likely, as we say, it's a value play. So those are the models I look at, right? Which book says this is a 3-lay parlay worth betting on? Frankly, you're not going to find any that believes that. So it's up to you as to whether you want to not plunk down your money and try to cash in a value play.
I feel like Bengals fans, if it hits, would react similarly to that a person would react if a plus 1,600 value play went off. You'd feel pretty good. There'd be a lot of jumping up and down.
Yes.
You might jump in a pool. It'd be a pretty big celebration.
And
we've been kind of calling it the 12-team parlay here for about a month now, and now you're at that part of every parlay that sucks.
Yes.
Where's my cash out option? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're looking for that cash out option. I need that right now.
Well, which
is what you're saying.
Which is why, I saw folks on social media on Sunday night, debating whether or not the Bengals would play on Saturday. And I'm happy they are, because I like the idea of focusing on one game.
Yes.
And sort of positioning it as advance to tomorrow, advance where I can spend tomorrow, meaning Sunday, meaning something. What I was hoping for was we would get a Saturday Bengals game, which we did. And then like 1:00, Jets, Dolphins, 4:25, Chiefs, Broncos. So we could kind of layer this thing.
Yeah.
And instead, I'm going to have to watch both of those games simultaneously and agonize through them. But yeah, that's what I've kind of done. I've had fun with it, like I think everybody has over the last couple of weeks. With the percentages and where they are. But really, when the Bengals won that game on Saturday, for me, that's when things kicked into hyperdrive. Both with the game itself, which was just bananas, and then, all right, now I know what has to happen. It's not that hard to articulate. They need these 4 results to go their way, and now they need 3 results to go their way. 3, which is obviously statistically not likely, but I guess not totally impossible.
All right. On that note, the discussion of the Bengals, if the odds go as they should, the math is the math, missing the playoffs. And it's sort of there's been this discussion of the wasting of Joe Burrow's season. We have talked about that here for a long time, about how that's going. Where the MVP conversation, I've kind of been reluctant. I don't want to go where it's kind of silly where every week, every game is a new definitive statement on someone's worthiness to be the MVP, and you narrow it down, and now it's what is valuable mean and how Burrow compares to Josh Allen and compares to Lamar Jackson, and where do you sit on that, like in terms of viewing the award and Burrow's worthiness? And if a guy who is in the conversation for those awards is not even in the playoffs, what is the overall effect of that? How does that sway your opinion on that?
So I think that's, to me, one of the real interesting parts of this. Let's say the Bengals win Saturday night and Joe Burrow throws 4 touchdown passes and does a whole bunch of Joe Burrow things. And they're 9-8. And his 2024 resume is complete because it's a regular season award, right? He has handed in his work. You are going to disqualify him if the next day the Kansas City Chiefs lay down against the Denver Broncos? So what's the cutoff at which we disqualify somebody? Is it they finish above 500? Is it they have to be the quarterback? Because it's a quarterback's award. Nothing against Saquon Barkley, but it's a quarterback's award. Like it or not, fair or not, it is. Does it have to be the quarterback whose team has a superlative record? Does Lamar get dinged if they lose to Cleveland but don't win the division and don't win the division? Like, I'm interested in what everybody's specific criteria is. What is the bare minimum? And I feel like for a lot of people, it's, well, he's got to be on a playoff team. You know, we haven't done a non-playoff MVP since 73. And back then the NFL was so different. O.J. Simpson's Bills went 9-5. They had a terrific record. They went 9-5, but the playoff field wasn't expanded. Johnny Unitas was the other non-playoff MVP. His team went 11-1-2.
Yeah.
But we didn't have wild cards. So there's really no real precedent for this. So do we just want to make it a blanket rule? Hey, you've got to be the quarterback of a playoff team? Man, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if for me the answer to that question is yes. But I understand why for a lot of voters the answer would be yes. And so you're going to have people who say, I'm voting for Josh Allen because he had a great year and his team won. Fine. I have no problem with that at all. You're going to have people who say, look, Lamar Jackson has done a lot of Lamar Jackson things, and he's the quarterback of a team that has been locked into a postseason berth for weeks, and they have the inside track on the AFC North title, and he won the 2 head-to-head matchups against Joe Burrow. Fine. I have no problem with that. Nor should anybody have a problem with someone who makes the case for Joe Burrow to be MVP, regardless of whether or not his team is in the postseason. He is having a tremendous season statistically. That's the first thing you look at. And then you look at circumstances surrounding him. I know Josh Allen doesn't have a 1,000-yard receiver. I don't believe he has a 1,000-yard runner. He does have a good offensive line. He doesn't have a great defense, but we look at like circumstances surrounding him. At times this year, Baltimore's defense was almost non-existent. But some voters are going to say, I'm going to lean toward the guy that has had to overcome the most, even if he hasn't gotten as far as the others. Joe Burrow runs away with that category as far as I'm concerned. His defense has stunk for most of the season. His offensive line has stunk for most of the season. One would argue specifically on Saturday night, the coaching has stunk for at least a chunk of the season, and he's had to overcome that. Now, yes, he's got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to throw to, and he's had Chase Brown as a terrific weapon here in the second part of the season. My point is, you can make a case for any of those 3 players, and I'm fine with it. I'm okay with it. The larger 2 points to me are these. Number one, the quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals is among the absolute elite players in the NFL and probably will be for the foreseeable future. He has come back from an injury where he's going to win his second Comeback Player of the Year award, and he has silenced any critics or any doubters about the caliber of his quarterback play. He is there. He is on the short list. If you want to say he's the best, if you want to say he's the third best, if you want to say he's on that short list of absolute bona fide faces of this league. And if he continues to play at this level, he'll get an MVP, right? There's going to be a point where maybe it's a situation like this where, well, you know what? Maybe Allen has his and Lamar has his, so we're going to give it to Joe Burrow. It works that way in sports. I think I heard Tony Romo say that on one of the games I was watching yesterday. Like you get to a point where it just becomes this quarterback's turn, and Joe is going to get his turn. And maybe it's this year, though unlikely. But the key part for me is the quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals is elite. He is, if you didn't think that going in, if you had hesitation regarding that take because of the injury last year, put it behind you. He is elite. That's number one. Number two, it goes back to what we've been saying all year long. The quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals is having an MVP caliber season, and he probably won't win it through no fault of his own because of how his season has been largely wasted, and the team around him simply hasn't been that good. If we keep doing that, that's a problem. If we are having this conversation every year, God, should Joe be MVP? I don't know, man. The team is trying to sneak in as the 7 seed. That's not good enough. The larger point for me there is they have wasted an iconic year, one of the best seasons in recent NFL history. arguably the best quarterback season in Bengals history. I'm not even sure it's arguable, and it's on a team that, as you and I talk today, is 8-8, and that's a problem.
A huge problem. The interesting thing about the debate to me ends up being, I do feel like, you do have to find players that have made plays that have equaled wins. It's not fair to Joe Burrow that he's been had to do that probably 3 times more than the people he's up against, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, because their defense sets them up well a little bit more for the Bills, obviously, than the Ravens. But there have been a lot of these games, a lot of the ends of these games for the Bengals this year that have been these losses where it has also been the offense that has not been able to close it out.
Sure.
Or it has been a fumble. Or, it's whether we're talking about Kansas City and you fumbled and had to punt to Patrick Mahomes. Whether you're talking about the Chargers game where they couldn't finish or settling for field goals that were missed, or there's any number of these. And I do think that matters. It's not fair to Joe that he's had to do it more than everyone else, but he has been in that situation, and they are what they have been in those. And Lamar has just been, to me, he's the guy. Like I just think Lamar has been incredible in what he does with his legs, the how little he turns it over, his ability to make big throws, to also be safe, to be spectacular, to be explosive, and then to make that play with his legs being the ultimate weapon nobody can count for over and over again. I do go to his, but the conversation switches exactly on the other foot if you get a 2-point conversion and a field goal made, and the Bengals actually beat the Ravens in both of those games. We're talking about Lamar in the light of Burrow, and Burrow in the light of Lamar. So there's your NFL margins.
Yeah, I mean, for me, who wins the action? I am going to think no less of any of those 3 quarterbacks if they don't win the MVP award this year. I will think no less of Joe Burrow. Now, do I think that that's kind of a box you have to check as a quarterback if you're going to truly be considered the best of the best of the best? Yeah. I mean, there aren't.
And he will.
Yes. And to me, that's one of the larger takeaways here. I don't care so much about who wins the award as I care about the quarterback of the Bengals having a season and doing so on a consistent basis where he's at least in the conversation. And if he is, the team is supposed to have success along with it. And the problem this year is that's not the case. If I'm looking at this objectively, Paul, I'm looking at Lamar. And look, I as a fan, I think it'd be nothing cooler than Joe Burrow to win it. I bought him before the season at plus 1,000 to win it, so I've got a financial stake in it. Like, I think it'd be cool, and I do not want to disqualify him if they don't make the postseason, because I feel like I'm punishing him, but I do believe this particular award, and I believe this in other sports, specifically basketball, it's got to come attached to team success. It just does. And Lamar's experienced more, including head-to-head against Joe. And so objectively speaking, if I vet this out, I'm taking Lamar. There are some metrics where Lamar has been better. But again, if a vote for Joe Burrow is one that I think everybody would nod along and go, I don't agree, but I get it. And that flings it back to my original 2 takes. Number one, it's awesome. The Bengals have a quarterback he's already been an MVP finalist once, stands a good chance to at least be a finalist again. That's the caliber of quarterback they have. It's also the caliber of quarterback they have on a team that is a long shot to make the postseason, and that's problematic.
It's so sad.
Yeah,
it's so sad. Like it's and I exhale and sigh because it's like it's sort of a reiteration of what the whole theme of the season has been, and this is the type of season that should be rewarded, and everyone else is failing them. And which takes on another discussion that I won't start up here. That will, but one that we'll continue to have is I do wonder about, the game against Denver was the perfect example. No one's asking this defense to be good. Just
Mhm.
give up 24 instead of 34,
Yeah.
right? Like you can give up plays. You can let 4th and 1 heaves. You can let dudes run by you. You can do all. No one's at just be that. If they just would have been this, they just would have
Mhm.
been that during the course of this season. This team would be the team that no one wants to play that's actually going to get in, and maybe they still do, but that's the thing is when it comes to this being unacceptable,
Mhm.
right? Where does the broad brush of the last month of the growth that you've maybe seen a little bit against some of the league's not strongest offenses account for, saying, oh, well, it's not unacceptable. They grew, they got better, things are still okay. That's a question for another day, and one that we'll have to continue to have.
How many times in the history, in the recent at least history of the NFL, have we been able to say at the end of a season a team cost its quarterback the MVP?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I can't recall. I can't recall another year where we've done this. And I was kind of looking back. A quarterback's won it every year since 2013. And so I was sort of looking back at all those years. All those QBs were on teams that won 11 games, 12 games, 13 games, were division winners, quarterbacks of top seeds, quarterbacks of teams that got buys. There's not a 9-7 or 9-8 or 8-8 quarterback in the mix. And I sort of looked at every year like, has there been a guy like this? Has there been a guy whose candidacy hinged on whether or not his team won that last game? And the answer is no. There's no one we've done this with. So to me, we fling it again back to that part of the conversation. The Cincinnati Bengals, you can make the case because Joe look, he's not going to win it. Okay. Like you might believe he should, you might be mad at us for advocating for Lamar or Josh Allen or whoever. Chances are he's not going to win it. And if he doesn't win it, I think you could then say the Cincinnati Bengals cost Joe Burrow an MVP, whether it's Cincinnati Bengals organization, Cincinnati Bengals players, Cincinnati Bengals defense, Cincinnati Bengals front office. The Cincinnati Bengals cost Joe Burrow an MVP. And if I ever have to utter that sentence after this year, holy hell, that's a problem. Because I don't think we've done this. I don't think we have done this in the recent history of this award where you looked at a player and said, God, he was so good, but his team was so bad that you would otherwise make him MVP, but his team just wasn't good enough. And so he frankly has no chance to win it. If we ever do that again, it's going to be even more problematic than it is right now. And for my money, it's very problematic.
On that note, we will wrap it up. Mo, I will be with you on Thursday at the season finale of the BW3s tour. It's been amazing.
We're going to Kenwood. We'll be there on Thursday, and it's going to be a blast.
3 to 4, and you can also listen. You can, of course, listen to Mo from 3 to 6, and we appreciate all the time that you have given us this year. We're not going to stop, of course.
No,
we it's only going to get. It's only going to get worse.
I mean, like the season may end. It may end this weekend. It may end in a couple of weeks. Regardless, it's only going to keep being interesting.
Yeah, it actually gets more interesting as soon as the game's end. There's no doubt about it.
What they have done over the last 4 weeks is like they've been interesting, so there's been no dip, but it's not going to dip once the season ends. And I want the season to continue. I think there'd be nothing cooler than for this team to complete this story where they go from not even on the screen to in the postseason, and we talk about their chances against the Buffalo Bills. I badly want them to finish it off, but once the offseason gets here, there's going to be a whole lot of things to talk about and debate and discuss, and that's going to be a lot of fun.
For now, you can talk about Carson Wentz and Aaron Rodgers' ability to play solid football, and that'll be fun too. So, all right, Mo, appreciate it, buddy.
I will watch Aaron Rodgers' documentary if it helps.
I don't think it does.
I don't find him remotely interesting, but I'll pretend. How many parts is it? Do we know? Like a 5-parter, 3-parter?
3? I don't. I want no part of it, so I have no idea.
If it will help Aaron Rodgers play better than he did against the Bills, if it will help, I'll at least turn it on and help his numbers. I might go in the other room because again, I just don't find Aaron Rodgers to be all that fascinating. But I'll do my part.
I don't think the Jets find Aaron Rodgers all that fascinating either. All right. Have a good one, Mo.
All right,
See ya.
man. I'll see you.